All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to this explainer where we take complex history and break it down visually. Today we're heading to the Deccan Plateau of southern India to witness something absolutely incredible. We aren't just looking at old buildings today. We're talking about a centuries-long masterclass in structural engineering, material science, and cultural synthesis. To kick things off, just look at this breathtaking detail. You think this was molded out of soft clay, pushed and shaped by hand, right? Nope. This is solid, unyielding rock, meticulously transformed into a masterpiece by master architects. I mean, look at the depth, the shadows, the absolute precision. To reach this level of artistry, ancient Indian engineers had to completely rethink how they built, the materials they used, and how they actually organized spaces. To really get our heads around these magnificent structures, we first need to define a core concept that totally changed the game: the Trikuta. This was a highly advanced three-part layout that completely revolutionized temple engineering. Instead of just a single isolated shrine, engineers started designing complexes with three distinct shrines, often of equal height, and seamlessly connected them all with a central gathering hall. It fundamentally changed how a worshiper would navigate the sacred space. Now, an architectural evolution like this doesn't just happen overnight. It was literally a relay race of innovation, passed down, tested, and refined over centuries by some seriously powerful dynasties. It all begins as early as 345 CE with the Kadambas of Banavasi, who introduced the foundational pyramid-shaped Chikara domes. The baton then passes to the Badami Chalukyas, then over to the mighty Rashtrakutas, and finally culminates in the 12th century with the hyper-detailed Hoysalas. Section 1. The Chalukyan synthesis, blending worlds. This brilliantly illustrates the totally contrasting architectural vocabularies they had to work with. On one side, you've got the Nagara style from the north. That's characterized by sweeping, curved, ribbed spires that often end in a circular, ribbed stone called an amalaka. Then, on the other side, you have the Dravida style of the south, which is defined by rigid, multi-tiered, stepped pyramids topped with octagonal domes. The Chalukyas essentially looked at these two completely different rulebooks and decided, you know what, we're going to use both. But hey, before you go building massive freestanding towers, you need a laboratory, right? The Chalukyas actually began their experiments in rock-cut cave temples, exactly like this stunning one at Badami. Carved directly into the sides of cliffs back in the 6th century. These caves were where the architects tested the waters. They blended northern and southern decorative pillars, brackets, and structural layouts right there in the solid rock, before ever attempting them out in the open air. The crucial point here is that they weren't just decorating, they were engineering highly functional innovations. They introduced the chaja, which is a double curving overhanging eave, and sweeping cornices that were specifically engineered to direct heavy monsoon rainwater and provide shelter from the intense heat. They even designed clerestory windows in the central nave to perfectly control the natural lighting inside, and they added parapet walls along the roof edges for extra structural integrity. Moving on to Section 2, Pattadakal, a blended masterpiece. What's really fascinating here is seeing these completely different architectural forms standing right side by side in a single complex. You have 10 temples here. 4 are built in the Dravido style, 4 in the Nagara style, and others literally combine the two. It is like seeing 2 different architectural languages having a conversation in the exact same courtyard. And we definitely can't forget that behind all these massive stone blocks are real human stories. The famous Virupakshik temple at Pattadakal was commissioned in 740 CE by Queen Lokamahadevi. She built this massive Dravidian-style structure to make a grand political and personal statement, commemorating her husband Vikramaditya II's military victory over the Pallavas. Back then, architecture was absolute power. But the site didn't just freeze in time. Fast forward to the 9th century, the Rashtrakuta dynasty takes over and adds the Jain Narayana Temple. This structure represents a massive leap in engineering. They began shifting toward highly durable schist rock, which allowed them to construct a complex 3-zone structure using advanced, dry-fitted joinery. Get this, instead of mortar, these master builders used precision-carved interlocking stones and massive counterweights to hold the entire temple together strictly under its own gravity. It was essentially ancient, heavy-duty Lego, just on a monumental scale. Section 3. The Rashtrakuta monoliths. 200 feet. That is the length of this single monolithic rock block they excavated to create the Kailasanatha temple at Ellora. Just imagine carving a complex Dravidian-style temple, complete with a Nandi pavilion, gateways, and cloisters from a single massive rock that is 200 feet long, 100 feet wide, and 100 feet tall. And they carved it from the top down. It is universally considered the highest example of rock-cut design on the entire Indian subcontinent, no question. While they were achieving this massive scale, they were also pushing the boundaries of layout. They popularized consecrating trimurtis, the three forms of the divine, in shared shrines. They built entirely separate pavilions just for the Nandi bull figures. And they heavily developed the Dvikuta, which is a two-shrine complex, and those Trikuta, three-shrine complexes, fundamentally changing how a worshipper physically moved through and experienced the divine space. Which brings us to Section 4, the shift to schist and advanced layouts. Moving entirely away from those softer, friable red sandstones, the builders eventually fully embraced this dense, greenish-black chloritic schist. It was a total game-changer for their engineering. It was workable enough to be chiseled with absolute microscopic precision, yet dense enough to be polished up to a brilliant, mirror-like gleam. So let's see how this all builds into the architectural layouts. This incredibly strong stone allowed for the absolute perfection of that dry-fitted three-zone structure. You have the Garbhagriha, the inner sanctum housing the deity. That connects seamlessly to the enterala, a vestibule or transitional space, which then finally opens up into the Navaranga or Mahamandapa, the beautifully pillared hall for gathering. Using schist allowed these vast, multi-part structures to support incredible weight and breathtaking detail. And because this schist could take such a high polish and hold incredibly fine detail without crumbling apart, the temple's completely transformed. Just look at the unbelievable intricacy here. They went from being mere functional buildings into massive, intricate jewel caskets, where literally every square inch was treated like a precious gem to be faceted and polished. All of this engineering logic ultimately culminated in the exterior walls themselves. Notice the star-shaped or astabhadra layout of this wall. By folding the walls into these zigzagging, star-like angles, the architects mathematically maximized the surface area of the temple's exterior. More surface area meant a bigger canvas for their continuous sculptural reliefs of elephants, cavalry, and ancient epics. It is just a perfect marriage of geometry and art. So from carving solid cliffs top-down to engineering dry-fitted, counterweighted jewel caskets out of polished schist, these architects didn't just build temples, they synthesized entire worlds. I'll leave you with this thought. If ancient empires working with simple chisels and profound vision could seamlessly synthesize contrasting cultural styles into unified, lasting masterpieces, how can the brilliance of this ancient synthesis inspire the way we build our interconnected world today? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.